Hey everybody, so good to be able to be with you today as we celebrate Church at Home. What an incredible Sunday we are having and going to have, and it's only going to get better. I'm excited about the possibilities and excited about the future for our church. And one of the things I just wanted to share with you is, we've been missing so much getting together, and so as a team, we decided we're going to bring back family lunch. And you're going to hear our Sunday lunch, family lunch on Sunday lunch, how after church we could get together and hang out in gatherings all around our region, all around the new areas that you've been part of. And so just in the next little bit, the next week or so, you're going to get some details on that. So watch for the details, but we're bringing back family Sunday lunch so that we can hang out together and we can just continue to build the community that we so much appreciate and so much value as a church. In this month, we're talking about, our theme is level up, because there's things in our life that if we just kind of get up and over them, we're going to grow and become more of the person that God created us to be. And we want to cover a whole bunch of stuff during July and August during this time. And, people are away on holidays and we're enjoying the summer. In fact, that's part of the reason why we're doing the Sunday lunches, is because summer is a great time to get out and hang out together. But as we talk about leveling up in our life, as we talk about how do we get over some stuff in order to move on and to get over some things in order to become who God created us to be and to become the person that God designed you to be today, I know that there's some things that we need to get over, and I want to start off today talking about one of those things, and one of those things that I think that is really important that we get over, because I know I deal with it, and I know probably many of us deal with it, is the whole idea of insecurity. Insecurity can be a barrier for so many people in accomplishing what God wants them to accomplish. And insecurity is just this insidious thing that just keeps us feeling like we're less than or not good enough. In fact, probably when you think about the word insecurity, we could probably describe it best by saying, I'm not enough, or I feel like I'm not good enough, I'm not valuable enough, I'm not talented enough, I'm not skillful enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not short enough, I'm not old enough, I'm not young enough, I don't have enough experience, I have too much experience, whatever is something I don't have enough of. And that tends to be the thing that makes us feel insecure. And I really want to help us today try to get through that and get over that so that we can level up in life and become more of the person God created us to be. Insecurity is a really challenging thing, because I think some of the things that we would typically think would help us become less insecure, in many ways help us become more insecure, they're not the cure for insecurity. And today we're looking for a cure for insecurity. One of the things that I find a lot of people think about in terms of insecurity is if I would just become more self-aware, maybe I wouldn't be so insecure. And I think there's a place for being self-aware. I think there's a place for knowing who we are and knowing who God created us to be. And absolutely, there's no question about the fact that knowing who we are is important and knowing what we're not. But being self-aware means that I'm aware of my strengths, but I'm also aware of my weaknesses. And so when somebody comes along and says, hey, can you do this? Well, no, I'm not good at that. I'm not really that great at that kind of thing. And if we're not careful, that becomes not just self-aware becomes not a way for us to help us overcome our insecurities, but actually enforces our insecurities. For most people, your harshest critic is yourself. And the more you look at yourself, the more insecure you feel, and the more incapable and not able. And the more we look at ourselves, the less capable we feel, really. The more we look at ourselves, the more we criticize ourselves. And I imagine you can think of the times when you've left a conversation and afterwards you're going through that conversation over in your head over and over again and saying, I wish I hadn't said that, or boy, I really feel like I hadn't done that. I know I've had several conversations, even the last week, when I've gotten home and said, man, I wish I had a do-over. I wish I could do that, because I feel like I just said the wrong thing. I feel so bad about myself, because we highlight our weaknesses and they cause us to become more insecure than ever. In the book of Luke, chapter 22, we're going to use this as the key, and I'm going to come back to it in a moment, but I just want to read it, and then we'll come back to it. Luke chapter 22, verse 39 to 43. This is the story of Jesus, kind of in the last couple of days before Jesus died, and he'd gone out to pray with his disciples, and starting verse 39 in the New Living Translation, it says, "Then, accompanied by the disciples, Jesus left the upstairs room and went out as usual to the Mount of Olives, and there he told them, 'Pray that you will not give in to temptation.' He walked away about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed, 'Father, if you're willing, please take this cup of suffering away from me. Yet I want your will to be done, not mine.' Then an angel from heaven appeared and strengthened him." So as soon as he prayed that, an angel from heaven appeared and strengthened him. He got encouraged and he got strengthened. Something to do with what he prayed. And we're going to come back to that in a moment as we just continue to talk about what causes insecurity or the things that we might try that don't really help our insecurity. One is when we're looking at ourselves, insecurity seems to be magnified, and self-awareness, it's almost as if the more self-aware I am, the more insecure I can become. The more aware I am of my weaknesses, the less I feel good about myself. And the other area that really seems to key in so much, and in fact, we're going to take a whole week to talk about that. I'm going to take a whole other service to talk about it. But the one other area that really, really builds our insecurities is when we look at other people. So if we look at ourselves, it has a tendency, if we look into our own lives, it has a tendency to cause us to feel more secure. And when we look at other people, because of the comparison that happens, we get even more insecure. You know, as we've been through this time where a lot of us spent more time on social media than maybe we had before, and you're maybe weaning yourself off it right now. But one of the things that happens with social media is everybody posts their highlights. Everybody posts their big moments and their great moments. But it's always been that way. It's just we never had it in social media before. We generally tell people the highlights of our life. Every year when our anniversary comes around, and we're coming up this year 39 years, but every year when we come around to our anniversary, I always fight a little bit of insecurity in how I'm honoring my wife or romancing my wife, because I've got all these other people who I know that they have done this really good job of having and celebrating, husbands that have done a really great job of celebrating anniversaries. I know one guy that I know, he's written his wife a letter every year, a poem. In fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, it might even be every day, but it might be just magnified in my head every week, it might just be magnified in my head. I know that Bob Adams gives his wife a bouquet of roses with one rose for every year that they've been married. I don't do that. And when I think about that, when I look at that, it's really easy for me to feel insecure. Like compared to that, I really suck at being a romantic husband. I'm just terrible at being a romantic husband. I look at other people, and we are typically the kind of people in life and in relationship where we tend to share our victories and we tend to share our successes. And so with that, looking at other people, it's so easy to become feeling like we are less than or not good enough because we see other people's highlights and we compare them to our weaknesses. And we'll talk more about that another week, but just in general, we do that. And so as a result, even in relationship, I'm just going to say this kind of as a caveat, is that it becomes really important to develop strong relationships that are healthy, is that we learn to listen to the whole story and we have conversations. In some ways, social media has allowed us to do that even better if we do it right, because people tend to be more honest online than they are sometimes in person. And so when we share that way, we can sometimes overcome that tendency to compare. But that comparing or looking at other people builds our insecurity. It doesn't cure our insecurity. And we're looking for something to cure our insecurity in order so that we can level up to the next level in our life and get over our insecurity so we can begin to become who God created us to be. And I want to look right now back at that passage. Let's go back to Luke chapter 22 right now. I want to just break it down for a moment because there's a key here that I believe is going to help us cure our insecurity so that we can level up. And here's what happened. So let's start again from the beginning. Then, accompanied by the disciples, Jesus left the upstairs room and went out, as usual, to the Mount of Olives. So what we hear is that Jesus was normally praying. This was not an uncommon thing. His disciples were with him, But just as he goes to pray, and this is a different day, this is maybe a different season for him, just as he goes to pray, he says to them, he said, specifically today, I want you to pray that you don't enter into temptation. And I think that his comment there is a little bit of a foreshadowing or just kind of a heads up on what he's going to deal with as he talks about the next thing, because there's a temptation to become me-focused. There's a temptation to think about what's most important to me. So he walked about a stone's throw away. So we keep reading, and I'm reading the New Living Translation, and he knelt down and prayed, and this is what he prayed. He prayed, Father, if you're willing, please take this cup of suffering away from me, yet I want your will to be done, not mine. There's an expression in there that occurs twice. First, Jesus says, take it from me, and then not my will or not mine. And once he readjusted his perspective, once he readjusted his focus in that moment, then it says an angel from heaven appeared and strengthened him. So when Jesus came into this prayer time, Jesus was struggling with some things. He was struggling with his future. He was struggling with his ability. And although it's not explicit in this passage, I think it's here. Jesus was struggling with whether he could get through this, whether he was able to endure the suffering, whether he was good enough, whether he was strong enough, whether he was holy enough, whether he was persistent enough, whether he could get through this. And he was wrestling with it. And the reason I know that is because in the book of Hebrews, there's this passage. It says in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 15, says, this high priest of ours, who's talking about Jesus, understands our weaknesses, for he faced all the same testings that we did, yet he didn't sin. I think in this moment that Jesus was feeling the insecurity, his lack of, his not able to do that, and his response and how he got over it, how he dealt with the insecurity of his life is in this one statement: I want your will to be done, not mine. The key today, the cure today to overcoming insecurity in your life, the cure to insecurity in your life today is to get above yourself. Not get over yourself, get above yourself. There's something bigger than you, and if you can shift your perspective today away from you, away from this horizontal level to the fact that there's a higher purpose, there's a bigger reason going on, and if you can get to that bigger reason, your insecurity will start to become less and less and less. The more often we tie into the bigger reason, the less often we feel insecure. By nature, we're pretty much trained from when we're born to think about ourselves first. When a baby's born, it's all about the baby. The baby wakes up at night, mom comes or dad comes. The baby cries, somebody's there. Everybody's, especially a first baby, everybody wants to hold the baby. Everybody wants to see the baby. Everybody wants to take pictures of the baby. And so from a very early age, we're kind of trained, we're kind of nurtured into this idea that's all about me. The whole world revolves around me. And it's true, that is what happens. The whole world revolves around me. It's a bit shocking when at some point in time our parents have to begin to train us and teach us that the world doesn't revolve around us, that it's time to share. It's maybe there's another child comes into the family and now they get attention or whatever it happens. But very early on we're trained into that. And so into our very nature is this tendency, this desire, this natural, the Bible would say it was our natural nature to be selfish, natural nature to focus on ourselves. And so when we're dealing with insecurity, what we're really fighting more than anything else. We're fighting that ability to make it all, we're fighting that tendency to make it all about ourselves. All about me, it's all about me, it's all about me, it's about how I feel, it's how about I do. It's what I want, it's what I need, it's what, and when we concentrate and we focus on these things, it makes us insecure because we never have enough. Jesus' antidote is to get above yourself. Jesus said, not my will, but your will, God's will. In your life, there is a higher purpose for you to live than just your comfort. There's a higher purpose for you than just your happiness. A few years ago, I had a conversation with somebody, and they were talking about their kids, and they were saying, my greatest desire is just for my kids to be happy. And I realized in that moment, and this may sound in some ways cruel, but I realized that in my heart, my greatest desire for my children is, yes, I want them to be happy, but my greatest desire for my children is not for them to be happy, but for them to be full of purpose, for them to accomplish and to fulfill the purpose for which God had called them, to get above themselves. You may have never done this, and I haven't done much of it, but if you've ever been rock climbing and you're climbing with ropes, if you're trying to go higher in life, you actually have to set your anchor higher. If you anchor across from you, you'll never get to the top of the mountain. If you keep focusing around you, you never get to the top of the mountain. But when you move your anchor up, then you have something to pull on, then you have something to attach to, then you have something to grab onto to pull yourself up. When we reach for the higher purpose, when we get above ourselves, and we reach for a higher purpose, and we know that there's a greater reason for our life, insecurity becomes less and less. We become less insecure because we become more purposeful. The antidote to insecurity is purposefulness. By example, I often think about relationships. And I know in relationships can be really challenging. And, when I say that my wife and I have been married for 39 years, I would say that a lot of that time, we wouldn't necessarily, I shouldn't say a lot of the time, but some of that time we wouldn't necessarily characterize as happy. That we felt like we were happy. I think we've got a great marriage if I don't compare it with somebody else. But there were certainly times in our relationship, even in the last few weeks, there's times in our relationship where we couldn't say we're happy or that this relationship makes me happy. But when I realized that my marriage or my relationship, the point of it, the purpose of it is not to make me happy, it's to make me more like Jesus. It's to make me holy. It's to transform my life and to let it be an example. Every time my wife and I fight, and I think, and those thoughts come and say, this is it. I'm done. I've had it. I've been over with it. I think, how many other people are affected by that? Because I go to a higher purpose, and when I go to that higher purpose, it helps me push through the temporary discomfort of insecurity, the discomfort of unhappiness, any of those kinds of, any kind of relationship, whatever it is we go through, whatever we're dealing with in our life, we need to find a way to find higher purpose. When you begin to feel insecure, we want to look for, God, what's the purpose in my life? And let me strive for that purpose. Let me push into the purpose, because I don't need to get over myself. I need to get above myself. There's a calling higher than my insecurity. There's a calling higher. There's a reason higher than me. As you just kind of come to the end of the message, and I hope something helps you today, but as we come to the end of this message this morning, I hope that you find today, and I hope you decide today, that your purpose is bigger than you. That you're here for other people, that you're here to help other people grow, that you're here for a purpose that only you can fulfill. In fact, I've got a book sitting here on the podium next to me. It's called The Hit Factory. I think The Hit Factory is a fantastic book. In fact, it's a great book about creating other people, producing other people's success. And I want to give it away today. I'm going to give it away. If you would text me, and I'm going to give you my number in a moment, and the production team's not going to put it on the screen because you've got to listen. But I'm going to give you my number, and if the first person that texts me the title of this message, what is the cure to insecurity? If you could text me that to my number, and my cell phone number is 778-214-4086, 778-214-4086. You text that to me, and I'm going to give you this book about how to find a higher purpose in your life. We struggle with insecurity. We struggle with not being good enough. But when we quit looking at ourselves, when we quit looking at other people, but we look to the purpose that God has called us, and then we know that we were created for that purpose. God made us just right to accomplish what he called us to do. And when we push into that and we think about that, we're going to diminish, we're going to lessen that cry, that voice of insecurity in our life, because we're going to get above ourselves. We're going to get above ourselves. Of course, the greatest purpose that God called every one of us to is to be in relationship with him. God loved you so much that this story that we read, that Jesus died on a cross. In fact, in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 24, Paul writes, he says, don't be concerned for your own good, but for the good of others. And Jesus exemplified that by dying on a cross, not concerned for his own well-being, but for the concern of others. And he did that so that you could have a relationship with God, so that you could live life to your fullest potential, so you could live life as a person you were created to be. And today, if that's you, I'd love to pray with you. And if you just take a moment, you'd pray with me. I'd love if you'd invite Jesus into your life, because he wants to have a relationship with you. Would you just pray this with me? Dear Jesus, I ask you to come into my life today. Thank you for dying on a cross for me. Thank you for doing everything you could to have a relationship with me. I receive you into my life. I welcome the relationship that we're going to have. Lead me, forgive me, make me into the person you want me to be. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, if you prayed that prayer today, I know that you received Jesus into your life, and we'd love to help you, because a relationship with Jesus is best done in a community, and we'd love to help you. So if you just text the word decide, we love to use text here, but if you just text the word decide to the number 778, it'll be on the screen, 760-3800. That's the number 778-760-3800. And we'd love to help you take the next steps in your journey with Christ. And don't forget, first person, text the title of my message, whether you're from the UK, you're from Kamloops, you're from Surrey, you're from Revelstoke, you're from Vernon, you're from Kelowna, Penticton, I don't know where you're from. I'm going to get this book to you. The first person to text to my number, 778-214-4086. Book is yours, The Hitmaker. God bless you. See you again soon.